Have you just bought a camper van and you've no idea how it works? Or are you thinking of buying one and you've no idea what to look for? Well, this video is for you, because in this video I'm going to do the idiot's guide to campervanning. We are going to explain how campervans work in a very, very basic way. What started as a mattress in the back of a work van, to an old Mark I Transit with no power steering, to years of saving and eventually our little T5 giving us memories we will always treasure. And finally, after the sad loss of my mother, a gift like no other.
Never in my wildest dreams did I ever think.
Bye! Have fun! Follow us as we begin the next adventure in our VW Crafter campervan, sharing our trips along with ideas and product reviews for Vanlife. I think it's worth saying I'm obviously no expert. I have had a VW T5 small camper van with a pop top, and if you follow my channel you'll know that I've recently bought a VW Crafter where you can stand up. As you can see, it's a much bigger van, but the concept of camper vans are the same across the board, with lots of different things that you can pay more or less for. You can be as simple as a bed in the back of a van, or you can have all singing, all dancing, everything. Number one is energy. So the first thing you need to understand is that you have two batteries usually. One is your car battery and the other is something called a leisure battery, and that is, there's lots of different types of leisure batteries, but all camper vans will have some form of leisure battery in the back of the van. And that is where your energy comes from, usually for your lights, for your fridge, for whatever kind of devices you run, plug sockets, USBs, and some have more than others, but basically your leisure battery is really important to keep that topped up. Now there's a couple of ways to keep that topped up. One is that when you drive your van or your car, there's a device that takes the energy while you're driving your car and feeds it through to your leisure battery, so that whenever you drive from one place to another it will charge up your leisure battery, and that's called a B2B charger. There's other names for it. I'm not a tech person, but in layman's terms, every time you drive it will charge your leisure battery, and then your leisure battery will hold the energy for the things within your camper van, like your lights or your USB sockets or your plug sockets or your fridge to run. Now, the size of your leisure battery is quite important, because if it's a small leisure battery it will only provide so much energy for the back of your camper van. Now you might only need lights in the back of your camper van. You might not need a microwave and a fridge and a 3-pin plug socket. But if you do, then you might need a larger leisure battery, or you might need something called a lithium, which is a much more modern leisure battery. But basically the basics are, a leisure battery is what provides the energy for your camper van, for the back of your camper van. Now the other way of charging that leisure battery, as well as when you drive it charges the leisure battery, the other way is sometimes camper vans have a solar panel on the top of their roof. If you have a solar panel that feeds through to your leisure battery, it means that whenever there's daylight, as long as your solar panel's clean, it doesn't have to be blinding sunshine, but as long as you've got daylight, it will trickle charge a bit of energy to your leisure battery. So if you're camped up using your leisure battery's energy and draining it slowly because you've charged your phone or your fridge is running, and then you decide to drive to another camp spot, that will charge your leisure battery, and then when you park up at that camp spot you've got a trickle charge coming from the sun or the daylight. So just in addition to the electricity from your leisure battery to charge your devices and plug sockets, it's important to note that most leisure batteries will only charge 12 volt, which is basically like your USB pin plug. You cannot get a 3-pin plug like this one unless you have something called an inverter. And what that does, an inverter is basically a square box somewhere in your van that takes the 12 volt from your leisure battery and turns it into 3-pin plug, your normal plug energy for your normal devices. But even then, there needs to be some working out done. So for instance, if you want to charge a pair of hair straighteners, you have to actually work out what the wattage of the hair straighteners are and whether your setup is powerful enough to work them with the 3-pin plug. So it sounds really complicated, but if you watch a few YouTube videos, it's not that complicated. I think it's probably more complicated to build a van and get the right setup, but understanding maybe what you've got, or when you're buying a van, what you're going to need, is just a matter of writing down what you think you're going to need. For me, it was an e-bike battery, it was a pair of hair straighteners, it was mobile phones and a laptop. And those things, I then worked out what the wattage was. So I know my inverter needs to be a certain amount of wattage to be able to work those items. So number 2 is cooking. Now you want to cook in your camper van, or it's not really a camper van. And there's different things you can use for cooking. Some camper vans have electric only, which means they only use the energy from your leisure battery. Now the problem with that in the UK is that if you don't have blinding sunshine recharging your battery, or if you don't have an array of batteries in the back of your van, then you can run out of energy if you're cooking on an induction hob. So that can be a problem. Or for instance, if you've got a microwave, and that's another thing I'll come to in a minute, but anything that takes electricity that you use for cooking, an air fryer or an electric induction hob or a microwave, all of those things are going to drain your leisure battery. So if your leisure battery hasn't got enough energy either going into it, or it's not big enough, then that can become a problem. So most camper vans have a bit of both. They have the leisure battery that provides the electricity, which is your lights and sockets and things, and they have a gas hob for cooking. Now I just have a 2-ring hob and a sink, and I can do most things with that, and if you follow my channel you'll be able to see how I do that. But you can get ovens that have a 2-ring hob and a grill and an oven underneath, and different kind of combinations. Or you can just have literally a pull-out gas hob, a single one with a little, like a little jet boil or something. You can have that in your camper van with a standalone gas canister. It can be as simple as that, or as complex as you like. But because there's gas in your camper van, in my case particularly, you're going to have a gas bottle somewhere. Now I have a small camping gas bottle. I'll show you now. It's in one of my cupboards, and I carry a spare so that when it runs out I can swap it over and then just replenish the spare whenever I find a Go Outdoors that sells them. But the thing you need to understand is that if you're carrying gas, you need to be safe. So the other thing I have is a CO2 detector, because I've got gas in the van. Now I just got the milk from my fridge, and my fridge runs on electric. But some fridges are a little bit more razzmatazz, and they run on 3 things. They can run on electric from a leisure battery, they can run on gas if you have gas, you can switch them over to gas, and they can run from what they call 240 volts. So you know when you go to a campsite and you have a lead that goes from your van all the way to an electric hookup, that basically means that you're being provided with electricity from the campsite, and you usually pay for that. So you can just live with a camper van on a campsite, plug in your electric, you don't need to worry about any of this, you can just use electric hookup, and that will provide the electricity for your van, but it will still have to be fed through your leisure battery. So you would plug into the electric hookup, that will charge your leisure battery, and then all of the things in the back of your camper van will work from your leisure battery. Unless they're gas, of course, so you're gas cooking, for instance. Okay, so next one is heating. Some people don't have any heating at all. They just have a lot of good blankets and good insulation in the van. Some have something called a propane heater, which works off gas, a gas bottle, and it will feed through to a heater that will essentially be a gas heater in your camper van. A lot of camper vans have something called a diesel heater. Now, there's a couple of types of diesel heaters. One of them has a separate tank that you would have to fill up with diesel when you go to the garage, usually in your boot, so you'll open your boot and fill it up. You'll open your boot and you'll get one of those cans and fill your diesel that way and fill it up that way. And the diesel heater works, the energy it uses is diesel basically, and it just pumps out heat. But some of the better ones, some of the better diesel heaters actually have a tube that feeds into your tank, your diesel tank of your van. So you've got a diesel van, there is a tank of diesel whenever you fill up at the fuel station. The tube goes into that diesel, but it's a little bit off the bottom, which means it always leaves you, if you had your heater all night and then it ran out of diesel and it stopped working, you're still going to have enough diesel in the tank to get to the nearest garage. And those are really handy if you can afford that, or that's what you've got. They're the best ones, because you basically just get in your van, press on, and you've got heat instantly, as long as you've got fuel in your van, if you like, or your car, your camper van, whatever type of camping van you have. So heating, I could go into loads of details about all sorts of heating, but ultimately it's usually your diesel heaters, your propane heater, which runs off a separate gas canister, or you're just using blankets and good sleeping bags. And of course, a cup of coffee to warm you up, or tea, as long as it's Yorkshire. So now for the next one, which I think is going to be toileting, which is probably the biggest question of all. Where do you go to the toilet? Now, I've done a whole video on this, on toileting in a camper van, so you can go and watch that. I'll put the link in the description. But basically, the most basic form of using the toilet is to use public conveniences, so your Tesco's, your McDonald's, depending where you're camping. Or you can go and wee in a bush, or dig a hole and, you know, do your contents and fill the hole in. There's other options like composting toilets, and you can have your own separate bathroom and shower, and, you know, and use your water tank to provide the water for that. Or there's things in between. I've got something in between. It's called a Trolino composting toilet. So it separates waste. I've gone into details again. I've done a video all about that, but it's kind of a kind of in between. I don't want a full shower taking up all that space or carrying all that water. So for me, it's not worth it. And I certainly ain't peeing in a bush unless I'm absolutely desperate and have nowhere else to go. So I have this Trolino toilet, but go and watch the video if you want to find out about the Trolino toilet. And there's other composting toilets on the market. I've done a few videos on those as well. But toileting really depends on who you're travelling with. Like, are you with someone that you just wouldn't dream of having a wee in front of them? Because if that's the case, then you kind of need a separate bathroom, if you like, which means the layout of your van is important and the size of your van is going to be bigger. It all depends what you want in a camper van, depends, or what you've got in your camper van depends on the kind of traveller you are. Do you travel off-grid, not on campsites, ever away from everyone, and there's not a McDonald's anywhere near for a poo? Or are you kind of, you know, city dwellers and you always stay on campsites and you've got electric hookup and, you know, there's always places to use the toilet because you're on a campsite? Very much depends. But if you have bought a camper van, you need to find out, does it have a toilet? What toilet does it have? Is it just a standalone kind of composting toilet or a toilet separator? Or is it, you know, a full bathroom with a built-in toilet where you take the cassette out and go and empty it somewhere? But if you want more details, because I won't go into loads of details because it's a bit meng, isn't it? If you want more details, go and look at my toilets in a camper van video, because I go into a lot more detail there. But be prepared, it is detail about toileting. So lastly, I want to talk to you about water supply. So you're going to need water for cooking and washing, cleaning, drinking, toileting, showering, depending on what your camper van has. It can be as basic as you go to Lidl or Aldi and you buy those literally water bottles and you use it like you would camping in a tent in the middle of nowhere. It can be simple like my layout, where the water tank is in the rear of the van and it's fed via a very simple pump. You press the pump, it connects to the electricity and it pumps the water through and it collects the waste, and then you just fill up or empty accordingly. If you have a shower room, you probably have a much bigger water tank than what I have. And it's usually somewhere either in your boot or under your van. So if you're buying a van, or if you've got a van, you need to find out where is the water and how do I fill it. And then you need to ask yourself, is it likely to be clean, or would I filter that water for drinking, or would I just buy drinking water for drinking? But there will be somewhere where your water comes from, a water tank somewhere in the back of your van or under your van, that will provide the water that you will need to fill up when it empties. And as far as waste goes, my T5, my little van, just used to have a waste pipe that went straight out under the van. So if I was in a car park in Tesco's, I couldn't exactly pour a cup of tea down the sink, because that would just go out onto the car park and that would be rude. I generally put like a tub underneath if I was somewhere like that and catch the waste. But if I was just camping in the middle of nowhere, which I often was, then it wouldn't really matter, because it's, you know, I use eco products, it goes out under the van, just to the ground, if you like. So you just need to be mindful about where your waste is going and how you're getting rid of it. This van is really cool because it has its own waste container that collects the waste, holds it until I'm near a drain where I can empty it, or, you know, I can take it home and empty it there. So every camper van has it slightly different. Most have a waste and all will have a water tank of some sort. So I hope that's been helpful to someone. I'm sure it will be. If it hasn't, then thanks for watching anyway. I do go into a lot more detail of my setup, of my experience of campervanning, and I waffle on about all sorts, to be honest. So if you do want to follow the channel, don't forget to hit the subscribe, and it'll let you, and if you do the bell, it tells you when I've uploaded a video. But we basically share our travels in our campervan and how we use it, and we also discuss lots of things like, you know, electric setups and well, all sorts of setups, basically anything to do with camper vans that's of any interest to anyone. So so if you want to follow, awesome. And thank you for watching this, and hope you found it useful. And if you have, let me know in the comments, because it's always nice to hear I've helped someone out. And until then, if you've got a camper van, go and enjoy it. Just get out. You'll find loads of problems. You'll come back with a list of things you need to do or buy, and but you'll just love that freedom it gives. And if you haven't got a camper van and you're planning to get one, then get in your tent and go and enjoy the freedom and plan your camper van journey. Best of luck. Okay, bye.